Hi, everybody. All right, tonight's class is a little bit different than what we've been doing till now, because till now we've been talking about building ourselves up. We've been talking about self-empowerment, how important it is to be focused and to be grounded and to keep ourselves the way that we are. And tonight's class is really special because tonight's class is at a point where you're ready to go into a relationship. And the question is, how do you look out for red flags in a relationship? How do you look out for things that might be a problem with somebody that you're considering going into a relationship with? Very important. Very important. Somebody has their mute on, because these red flags, they can save your life and they can destroy your life. If you're aware of the red flags and you pay attention to them, you'll be saving your life. If you're unaware of the red flags because you're so taken by your heart that you're not really thinking, then those red flags, they can be catastrophic. They can be the end of your life. They can mean that somebody will control you. And it works both ways. There are red flags for men as well as there are red flags for women. Everybody wants to go into a relationship that's a healthy relationship. Now, here we go. How do we talk about these red flags? How do we find them? How do we know what red flags are? So I'm going to have a whole list of them, a whole list of things that are red flags for a relationship. Before I start with my whole list, however, I think the primary thing, the first thing to know in a red flag for a relationship, very hard for people to hear, is where is that person coming from? What life did that person lead? What did that person see in their home? If they come from a home that was a peaceful home, a home where there's communication in the home, a home where people talk to each other, people relate to each other, they've got a good picture in their head of what a relationship means, they're in a very good place. However, if somebody comes from a home where it is not a healthy relationship, I know this is very hard for people to hear because this is the red flag, the biggest red flag. If someone comes from a home that is not a good home, that is not a place where there's communication, that is not a place where there is love, that there's a place where there is fighting and there's constantly a rift between the mother and the father, that is a huge red flag. Now, what does that mean? This huge red flag. Does that mean, oh, you have to say goodbye to that person? There's no way you could be in a relationship with that person? The answer is no. The answer is there is a red flag. Don't get rid of the person. Don't let the person go. It just means that there's a lot of work to do, that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And the person needs to be aware of the fact that they're coming from a house that is not a good place and that they have not seen a healthy relationship. And if they haven't seen a healthy relationship, they will be able to create a new relationship. They might have other role models. They may have been in other people's houses. They may have been by cousins' houses. They may have been by uncles and aunts. They may have been by friends, but they have to create a new vision for themselves. Their red flag will only go down and turn into a white flag if they can create a new vision for themselves and if they accept the reality that they are a red flag because what they've seen is not a good thing. Okay, so I have to put that out there before anything else. Everything else is easily workable. Anything else, all the things we're going to say about a red flag are things that you can work with in a relationship. But again, I'm putting that out there, that the primary thing is what is the environment that the person is coming from? And are they ready to change that environment? Are they ready to create a new reality for themselves? Okay. Now let's move on to the easier things, and we'll come back to the questions about all the red flags. Believe it or not, an easy one is if you're going out with somebody, whether you're going out with a man, whether you're going out with a woman, whichever one you are, whether you're female or you're male and you're going out with somebody, one big red flag is who are their friends? Very important. If they have good friends, then you know they are a good person. And if they have bad friends, then you know it's a red flag. And very often people will say, oh, I'm nothing like my friends. I know how horrible they are. I'm not like my friends. No. If a person surrounds themselves with people that are not good people, there's a really big question there. That's your first red flag. That's a big red flag. A person who has good friends around them, a person who mixes with good people, that's a good thing. Red flag, if a person does not have good friends. Red flag, I'm going to go through them and we're going to come back over them again. Red flag number 2, a big one, very, very big. When you're out on a date and you're with that person, how does that person treat service people? What does that mean? How does that person treat a waiter? How does that person treat somebody at a gas station? How does that person treat somebody behind the counter of a coffee shop at Starbucks or just getting a Diet Coke? Perfect example. This week, I was at a sushi place up here in the mountains. And everybody's standing online. And of course, everybody, when you're standing at a counter at a restaurant, everybody's hungry. So everybody's a little bit on edge because everybody wants to get there. Well, this one guy comes in with his food and he embarrasses the waiter or the person that served him out loud. He said, I told you I don't want red onions. I have red onions in my salad. I didn't want red onions. And the waiter was so demeaned and so put down. Now, the girl that was with him, she might think, oh, he's only like that now. He's upset with the waiter, but he's not really like that. No. He's really like that. And this guy, they were on a date. This guy, he really proves he was like that because the waiter did the salad over. He gives him back the salad. The guy has the chutzpah to come back in, do the whole jump way ahead of the line, go yell at the waiter all over again and say, I still have there's a piece of red onion in my salad. A piece of red onion. Is that worthy of embarrassing somebody in front of an entire restaurant? Do you think there was one person in that restaurant, one girl in that restaurant that would ever want to go out with a guy like that? This guy had no manners. This guy had no respect. This was a person, he was a lowlife. The bottom line was he was a lowlife. Now, I was watching the girl that he was with, lovely girl, but I was thinking, after he did this, she still continued to be nice to him. Is it possible that someone could be so desperate and so blind not to see that this was not one red flag. This guy was walking around with a banner, red flag. I am not a good guy. I don't treat people that are in servicing positions well. And guess what, girl? You're going to be one of his servicing people because you're going to be serving him breakfast one morning. And that one morning, he may be in a really bad mood. And you may have dropped a red onion into his salad. And guess what? You're going to be the next target. You're going to be the next victim. Because if this guy has it in him to do it, that is a red flag. So it's very important to know that how people treat somebody who are service people is a very, very, very important thing to do. Okay, next one. This is a very good one, and this is very appropriate for today's times. How does your partner treat social media? What is their connection on social media? Are you on the same plane as them when it comes to social media? That's a very important thing. Is this why? Why? Because very often people on social media, what they will do is they will cultivate an identity of themselves. Now, this identity that they cultivate on social media may not be the same identity that they really are in real person, because on social media, they can fake it. They can display themselves as a person who's a very nice person, a person who has a great sense of humor, a person who's not cynical, not sarcastic. But in real life, social media doesn't work because that eye to eye contact, that environment of being in the same energy environment, that will tell you what the person is really like. Now, if this is a person who's very busy on social media, this is a person who is very busy escaping from their real world. They're more comfortable interacting with people on social media than they are interacting with people on a hello, how are you? Let's talk. Now, Zoom, I think, is a little bit better than social media because you see the person. You can actually, we've gotten to a point now where we can really interact. Of course, I'd much prefer to be with my students in the same room as them so I can really feel their energy. But Zoom is at least an interaction. Social media is it's a fake. It's what a person is trying to relay on social media of who they are on social media, but that is may not be the same person. So it's very important, red flag, of what is this person on social media. Now, 2 years ago, that was not one of my red flags because people weren't really relating to each other that much on social media. But today, it's like, how far are you going to go on social media? How how much are you going to escape real interaction and to be on social media instead of having a real live interaction? So that is another one that I want to talk about. Okay, another one. I love this one. Get this: you're going out with a guy or you're going out with a girl, and the person says to you, I'm going to share something with you that I'm not allowed to share with anybody. I, but because I trust you so much and we have such a good relationship, I'm going to share it with you. I'm sworn to secrecy. I found out that my best friend is getting divorced. Don't tell anybody, but I trust you so much that I'm telling you that my best friend is getting divorced. And so, what do you think to yourself? Oh, wow, look at us. We have this great relationship. He trusts me. She trusts me so much. She's telling me a secret that somebody told her in confidence. She's sharing that secret with me. Now, what does that tell you about the person? Guess what? You're going to tell them a secret and they're going to break their word because this person does not keep their promises. Did you hear what he said or what she said? I promised them I wouldn't tell anybody, but I'm telling you, can you imagine? They're getting divorced. And I'm not telling anybody, but I'm telling you. What does that tell you? That person cannot be trusted. They're breaking a confidence. They promised they wouldn't tell somebody. That means their word, it doesn't mean anything because they can break a promise. So A, what do you learn about them? You can't trust them. They for life. That's it. This is a person who lies, who tells somebody, I promise I won't tell anybody. Of course you can tell me your secret. Your secrets, what do people say? I'm a vault. I'm not telling anybody. Well, guess what? They're not a vault. They're lying because they're telling you the secret. And guess what? When you're going to tell them a secret at some point in time, they're going to tell somebody else because they're not a vault. They are a dishonest person. So interesting, right? You would think, oh, a red flag, those got to be really big things. It's got to be the first one that Dr. Faye said. It's got to be the one where you come from a really bad home. That's a red flag. Well, that may be a red flag, but I would say this one, breaking a confidence, telling somebody to trust you, that's a real red flag. I would say treating a waiter in a demeaning way in front of other people as though what? A waiter is less of a person because they chose to make a living. They chose to make some money by working behind a counter so that they can have a job. Is that a reason to demean somebody? Absolutely not. That's a red flag. And then they tell you, oh, I'm really not like my friends. My friends are awful, but I'm different. That's a red flag. Because if they're friends with that person, if that's who they choose to surround themselves with, that is a red flag. Let me go on. Okay. Another one is this a person who has a history of short relationships, right? Like you're going out with them and they tell you, I was best friends with Johnny, but then Johnny, he's like such a horrible person. He stole some money from me, Johnny. He's a horrible person. We went out and he actually stole money from me. And Jane, oh my God, I was best friends with Jane, but I couldn't believe it. She really did me in. She didn't give me back something that was very valuable to me. I lent her a very important book and she never gave me back my book. Jane is a stealer. So I'm just done with Jane. And Marsha, oh gosh, Marsha, I had a relationship with Marsha. We were best friends, but I had to end that relationship because I told Marsha about my mother and Marsha went and told a bunch of people about my mother. So what does that mean? If you're in a relationship with somebody who is telling you about all of their bad relationships, about all of their short-term relationships, that is a red flag. And also, they are saying everyone else is wrong. I I didn't do anything wrong. He stole from me. She never returned my book. He told a secret that wasn't supposed. Everyone else is wrong, but me, I'm perfect. I had to end all of those relationships. When a person is not ready to admit that they play a role in every relationship that they're in, that is a red flag. Because when you're in a relationship, you play a role in the relationship. If somebody lies to me, right, and I confront them and I say to them, you lied to me. You told me that you were coming to my house on Friday night and you never showed up. That made me feel really bad. Now, that's not me ending the relationship. I'm hurt that they didn't come on Friday night, but I'm having a conversation. I play a role in it. I'm playing a role. Why didn't you want to come? Well, because last time I came, you really didn't pay attention to me. Okay, so that means that they didn't come. Okay, but I played a role in that. I should have paid maybe more attention to them the first time they were there. Or maybe they're a person that's very needy and I had a lot of people at my table and I couldn't pay that much attention to them. So next time I know, I will only invite that person when I only have 5 people over, not when I have 35 people over. But the important part of all this is to understand that if there is a history of a lot of short relationships, that is a red flag. Okay, let's go on. There's a lot of red flags, but we want a lot of red flags because we're looking for a relationship that will be a long lasting relationship, right? That's what we all want. We want to go into a relationship where we can trust somebody, where we can believe in them. We want to go into a lifelong relationship. So although I'm naming a lot of red flags and it seems like, oh God, Dr. Faye, so many red flags. How am I going to find somebody that's like a true good person? There are true good people. There are people that do have good friends. There are people who treat waiters nicely. There are people who are nice people. So because I love you all so much and because you are my children, I have to share with you what there are as red flags in a relationship. Okay, so now we're going to go on. Another one is, so it's not dissimilar to that one, but it's a little bit different. Somebody is in a relationship with you and they were in a relationship prior to you, right? And what do they tell you about the prior relationship? Oh, my ex was horrible. My ex was so selfish. My ex was so lazy. My ex never went to work. My ex was so unmotivated. Guess what? Somebody who could talk so badly about their ex, red flag, red flag. Like now you think to yourself, no, but I want them to think I'm amazing. And if their ex was horrible, that means that I'm just a fabulous person. Listen, we're all fabulous people. We're all fabulous. Right, Dr. Rabbi Katzin? We're all fabulous. But no one of us is perfect. No one of us is a perfect human being. We all have faults. So if this person, I'm going to put another one in there. If this person says, my ex was horrible, my ex was a liar, my ex was lazy, you're perfect. I'm obsessed with you. I can't get over how perfect you are. You look so beautiful all the time. You dress so beautifully. You smell so good. You're so honest. You have so much integrity. You're so smart. No, 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 no. If somebody is obsessed with you and they think that you're so perfect, something is wrong, because it's not real. None of us is perfect. And they may have to think that you're perfect. Why? Because it builds them up. Oh, I'm going out with a perfect person. That means I'm perfect as well. But it's not real. That's a red flag. So even though, especially this goes really for the ladies a lot, because a lot of us ladies, we love thinking that guys are thinking about us all the time. They're not thinking about work. They're thinking about us all the time. We love that. We love that a guy should be obsessing about us, because we tend to obsess a little bit more about guys than they obsess about us. But the truth is, it's not good when a guy obsesses about you. Obsession is not a good thing. It's not real. It is not something that you want, because remember, again, none of us is perfect. And for somebody to obsess about you is not a good thing. Why? Let's go to the next. Let's go onto a deeper level. If they're going to obsess about you, what does that also mean? Obsession leads to control. If they're going to obsess about you, the chances are that you are an obsession for them. It's called anxious attachment. It's anxious attachment. They're obsessing about you. You are their obsession. It's not a good thing. You need to have your own life, because obsession does lead to control. And obsession leads to possessiveness. When somebody's obsessed with you, they will also try to be very possessive of you. And when someone tries to be possessive of you, the next step is that they try to control you, and they will try to isolate you. So now we're getting into deeper things. Now we're not just looking at red flags, and Dr. Faye is telling you, stay away from the red flags, be aware of the red flags. It doesn't mean you have to leave the relationship, but be aware that there's a red flag. But this red flag, the one I'm going to talk about now, I'm going to a deeper level. This red flag, I'm going to tell you that you have to avoid the relationship. You have to run for the hills. You have to leave the relationship. So I want to talk about this again in a moment, because I want to just go over the simpler ones. The simpler red flags with somebody who doesn't treat a waiter well. The simpler red flags is somebody that doesn't have good friends. The simpler red flags with somebody who talks about their ex in a way that's very demeaning. The simpler red flags are somebody who has a history of short relationships. Those are simpler red flags. You don't have to end a relationship because of those. You have to just know in those relationships, just be aware of it. And you can continue on. You can easily, that person has bad friends, you could talk to them about it. I really don't like your friends so much. I don't think that they're so good for you. It's a conversation. You don't have to run. But now we're going to go deeper. Somebody is obsessing about you. Somebody becomes very possessive of you. Somebody becomes very possessive of you, and they start isolating you, and they start saying, well, you're mine. I'll tell you what to wear. I'll go shopping with you. I'll pick out your clothes for you. And no. You don't need to talk to your friends. You don't need them. They're not really that important. You don't need your friends. You only need me. But if you are going to talk to your friends, let me give you the times that work for me when you can talk to your friends. I'll give you times that you can talk to your friends. And let's talk about the food that you're eating. I'm going to tell you what I want you to eat. I'll tell you what I don't want you to eat. I'll tell you how much I think you should weigh. I'll tell you what color looks best on you. And I'm not just going to give it to you as an opinion. I'm going to give it to you as a way of life, because this is how I want you to be. You're mine. I own you. And because I love you, so much, I own you. I love you. Because I love you, I'm going to tell you what color you look best in. You look great in the color green, always. You should always wear green. And about your friends, let's just leave it alone. I think it's good enough if you talk to your friends once every 2 weeks. On once every 2 weeks is fine. And you know what? I'll be around when you talk to your friends. And you know what? When you go shopping, I'm going to go shopping with you because I want to make sure that the clothing that you buy, you look really good in that clothing. I'm going to tell you what looks really good on you. And about your dentist appointment, I'll tell you when to go. I'll even tell you which dentist to go to. I'll even tell you which doctor to go to. I'll tell you everything. And I will isolate you. I will try to make you stay away from your parents. I will try to make you stay away from your friends. So these are very serious issues. These are not just simply red flags that you should be aware of. These are red flags that you need to run away from. Very important, okay? Is that clear? Painful, but very, very, very clear. Let's go back a little bit now, and then we'll come back to this. So again, we're talking about red flags that you can live with, and we're talking about red flags that I will tell you, run, okay? This one is not one you need to run away from. If a person has a lot of mood swings, you go out with them on Monday and they are happy and they say, hi, how are you? I had the best day in the world. And then you talk to them on Tuesday night and suddenly they're morose and they're sad. And you say, you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Why? I know last night you were so happy, but now sounds like something's bothering you. No, I'm okay. I'm okay. If the person is not ready to talk to you about their mood swings, this is something that is not good. You have to be aware of. Maybe the person has mood swing tendencies. Maybe it's really just hormonal for women that they just, it might be a bad mood time. That would be okay. But it is something that you need to be aware of. Okay. Another thing to be very aware of. So sorry, Rabbi Katzin, I feel awful, but I felt this class was very important about the red flags. I always like doing very optimistic programs and very positive programs, but I just thought that tonight I felt it was very important to do a program about red flags. So I will continue on. If you go out with somebody and they're very secretive about their past, they don't tell, you just don't know anything about about what's going on with them. It's kind of a red flag. Why aren't they telling you? Where did they grow up? How many siblings do they have? Do they talk to their aunts and uncles? Do they talk to their brothers and sisters? If they're very, very, very secretive, that's also a red flag. But again, that's the red flag that you don't have to run for the hills. That's a red flag that you want to ask yourself, why is this person very secretive? Did they go through a trauma in their lives? Have they alienated themselves from their family? Which may not be a bad thing. There are plenty of families, plenty of families that people need to alienate themselves from. There are people that come from very unhealthy families, and they have very good reason to alienate themselves from that family. So we're not going to judge them. The point is, it's a conversation. Why aren't you talking to your brothers and sisters? Why aren't you talking to your aunts and uncles? But again, that is not a reason for running away from a family. Okay? We'll do the whole thing again, and we'll separate running away, run for the hills, and we'll do the red flags. That just means that they're conversations to have. Now, I would like to say something very important, because I know our rage group is a very smart group. I would like to say that if you have a feeling, and we talked about this on the bus, Rabbi Katzin, if you have a feeling, if your guts are telling you there's something wrong here, your instincts are just saying something doesn't feel right, trust your instincts, because your instincts are your brain. Your instincts are your deep part of your brain telling you there is something wrong over here. So that's not a red flag. That's just telling you that when your instincts tell you that something is up, this person is a little bit off, trust your instincts. Okay? Okay, I am ready to go over things. I have one more. That is another run for the hills. It's a very hard one. And it doesn't come out at the beginning of the relationship. It comes out a couple of weeks in, a couple of months in. A person who blames you for everything. You are responsible for everything. They had a bad day, you end up being the target for their bad day. You could be in New York, they could be in China. Something goes wrong for them in China. This is real. There really are people like this, believe it or not. Something goes wrong for them in China. Somehow they will figure out a way that it was your fault that they ended up in China. Believe it or not, there could be a person out there who was in China, in Wuhan, when COVID started, and they ended up in Wuhan. They ended up with COVID. And believe it or not, this kind of a person will figure out a way to call back in New York and say, I can't believe this. I'm stuck in Wuhan now for 3 months, and it's all your fault. Because do you remember when you told me that I should go on this trip and do this business trip? Well, hey, guy, you did the business trip. I didn't put you on the airplane to Wuhan. You made the decision to go there. So I'm not responsible for the fact that you are there. But there are people who will blame somebody, even though you're not responsible. And these kind of things are unfortunately very common in my field of abuse and domestic violence, where women or men are blamed for things that were not their fault. I had a terrible situation. I don't know if we ever talked about it, about a woman who, she always left her keys in one place, right when she entered the house. And her husband was gaslighting her. That means he was really giving her a hard time, horrible person. And he would move the keys. And she would say, I don't know where my keys are. I know I put them by the front door. And he would say, ugh, it's just the way you are. You're so forgetful. You don't remember anything. And it was very hard for her to maintain her state of mental health when she had somebody blaming her for something that she didn't even do wrong. She never moved the keys, but that was his way of controlling her. Okay, so should we do a little bit of a review, Rabbi? We'll do a little bit of a review. So when we talk about our red flags, we talk about simple, let's do our simple things first, okay? Our red flags are when you don't like somebody's friends, okay? That we said was a red flag. We talked about red flags of somebody who does a lot of social media interacting and not a lot of realistic interacting. That's a red flag. We talked about somebody who thinks that you are absolutely perfect. That's a red flag, because why do they think you're perfect? None of us is perfect. Why would they think you're perfect? They probably think you're perfect because they want to think they're perfect. And if they're going out with a perfect person, well, then they must be a perfect person. We talked about a red flag being somebody who breaks confidences, who comes over and says to you, I'm going to tell you a secret. I'm sworn to secrecy, but I have to tell you because I love you so much. I'm sharing every secret with you. This is a person you can't trust because they are breaking a confidence. They're sworn to secrecy, but they can't keep a secret, and they promised they would. They're not trustworthy. That's a red flag. Waiters, treating people who are in service positions, a waiter, a restaurant person, a person at a meter place, a person at a parking lot, somebody who treats them in a low and demeaning way. That's a red flag. A person who has a history of short relationships. That's a red flag. A person who speaks very badly about their ex all the time, that it's all their ex's fault. That's a red flag. Okay, these are all red flags. A person who's very secretive about their lives, and their family, they don't want to tell you what's going on in their family. That's a red flag. Okay. And a person who has a lot of mood swings, that's a red flag. But now we're going to talk about the very red flags, the ones where you have to be really, really careful. And you don't even stay there. That would be a person who is very possessive. That would be a person who is very obsessive about you. That is a person who has a repetition of bad relationships, a person who is very controlling of you, a person who wants to control your time, a person who tries to isolate you from all of your friends. Those are signs and symptoms of possibly a person who is going to be an abusive person. Okay, I think I'm good. And I'm open to questions. Yeah.
This is great. Thank you. It's really informative.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you so much. Tough class to give.
Can't think of a question, but I just wanted to make a comment.
Okay. So, Alexandra, do you want to just look at the chat and see if there, you don't have to read the whole thing, just let me know if there are things there that are topics for discussion. Rabbi, in the meantime, we would love to hear some words from you.
Well,
I also have a question, so maybe after the rabbi I could ask.
Okay. But first of all, Dr. Faye, I think that it is extremely important, and it's very important for a person to be positive, to also be truthful to reality in himself. So this is a really gold, as Julia put in the chat. It's a very, very important life skills that it is many of us, I'm talking about, people with our backgrounds, we're possibly missing these skills. What I wanted to probably mention, one of my friends who was a good husband, but he decided to give allowance to his wife, money allowance. I really told him, you're out of your mind. I mean, what are you doing? This is not the way to treat your woman, to treat your wife. And friends also were telling him. Unfortunately, it ended up in divorce. When he turned to me and said, "It's all your fault. Why didn't you tell me more? Why didn't you tell me stronger?" But again, money allowance or controlling money is also an issue.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. Absolutely. When we talk about abuse and control, one of the issues are financial abuse. That if a person decides to limit how the other person spends their money, yeah, that is definitely abusive, unless they have a conversation about it. If they have a conversation about it and they have a contract, and in that contract they create expenses, and the expenses are realistic, and the guy feels more comfortable in terms of creating a budget where what they created was that she needs $700 a week for expenses for groceries. They have a large family. She needs to buy clothes. She has traveling expenses, transportation for the children. And the amount that they came up with in their budget that they did together was $700. That's different. That's not giving a person an allowance. That's not treating them like a child. When you give somebody an allowance, that word allowance, of course, what do we hear when we hear the word allowance? We hear a third grader. Here, I'm giving you $10 for the week so that you can have money to buy canteen. You can have money to buy candies for yourself on the way home from school. Two people that are married do not deserve to hear that word allowance. So the word is really what bothers me more than anything. If he would have said to you, I want to talk to my wife about a budget, you would have said to him, oh, great, that's a great idea. I think great having input from her about how money is going out, since she's the one that spends the money. It's a great idea. And he could still be married. That word allowance, that's controlling.
Thank you so much. Hannah, please.
Yeah. So Dr. Faye, first of all, thank you. That was a really great lecture, and I actually took some notes. So if anybody wants them, you can private message me. I wanted to ask, because you mentioned the idea of like being quiet about your past or saying certain things. So at what point would you say like it is appropriate to communicate, obviously, like what you need to communicate to the other person? Like, for example, I'm not particularly close to my family, so I would want to communicate that to the other person, not necessarily in great detail, but I would want the other person to know that. So at what point, like, would you think that's important to communicate?
Excellent question. Probably a question that 75% of the people listening to this want to hear. Excellent, excellent question. At what point, thank you. At what point do you share these kind of things with somebody? So sharing with them that you're not that close to your family, that can happen a little bit earlier. Like that could happen probably once you're into third, fourth, fifth date, let's say, right? You can share with them that you're really not that close to your family. The details of why you're not that close to your family, that's the question. I'm a very big believer in not allowing your partner to become your therapist. So it's how much information do they really need? Do they really need to hear the horrible, gory stuff? Is that necessary? Or is it just exactly? Or is it enough for them to know, ask me what you want to ask me. I'll answer the questions that you want to answer. But more than that, I don't want to get into it. I don't want to get into the horrors that I lived through. It's just, I don't feel like it. Now, there may be somebody out there that may say, no, we're really very close. And if you're comfortable enough, it does mean a lot to me. I do want to know about the horrors that you went through because I want to make sure that I will never recreate those horrors for you. I always want to be with you and I want to be there for you. So in that situation, it's a different answer because that person may love you in a way where they want to be there for you. And maybe the relationship can handle that kind of trauma together. And maybe that's really a wonderful thing. But it's, that part is a decision that has to be made. It's one of those TMI, too much information. Will it help the relationship or will it hinder the relationship?
Maybe they're saying that, but they don't really want to know. That would be my guess.
I think that's very honest of you. I think maybe they're saying it, but do they really want to know? And what's the benefit of them knowing? It's kind of, I don't love giving this example, but an example would be if somebody has been unfaithful in a relationship, but they still want to be in the relationship. Is there a need, or, and I don't mean unfaithful, very deep. They became friends with somebody at work. So the question is, they got over it, they got past it. Do they need to come out and tell their partner, you know what, there was somebody at work, I became very friendly with them. What's the benefit of doing that? The partner is just going to be hurt. It's over anyway. So the person thinks that they're proving their closeness, but really all they're doing is relieving their own personal guilt at the expense of the partner. There's no reason for the partner to know that they were very good friends with somebody. It's over. Skip it, move on. That's an opinion. Different people have different opinions. But that's the opinion I go with. So the same thing over here. Okay, do we have other questions?
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Dr. Faye, I wanted maybe to ask you, because some of the questions that you ask to watch out for controlling people, abusive people, it really comes down to also to mental health. And this is really like a serious issue on many levels. On the level, I don't know, to watch for, to hear. By the way, many people do have some mental health issues. Do they need to reveal how to treat this whole issue?
It's a great question. The answer is that if somebody has mental health issues and they're going into a relationship and the relationship is moving on, if this person is on medication for their mental health, I don't think you can not tell your partner that you're on medication. Do I think you need to tell them on the first date, the second date, the third date, the fourth date? I don't think so. I think that if you're a person where you're well balanced, your mental health is well balanced, I think that it's okay to hold that for a little bit deeper. Do I think you should go into a marriage without telling? No, I don't think so. I think once it comes to being medically treated for some sort of diagnosis, I think it is important to share that with the partner, because in all likelihood, something may get triggered later on in life, and that partner is with you so that they need to know what medication you're on. Um, I actually think halachically, it's not really allowed either. I think halachically, you're obligated to tell the other person. Yeah.
And maybe last question from me. Sometimes red flags on us.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rabbi. Yes.
Sometimes red flags within us, like we're looking for the red flags around us, but we also need to be aware of the very same thing that you said
I
in
think
us.
we've been talking about for the past 13, 14 weeks. We've been talking about self-awareness. Being aware of your issues is 99% of resolving the problem. Being aware of your issues is 99% of resolving the problem. I was going to bring up one more thing that I love to talk about because I think it's so important. And you mentioned it now with the mental health. We talk a lot about repetition compulsion, which means the compulsion to repeat the cycle. That is very, very relevant. That if a person comes from a background where there was a lot of fighting, where there was a lot of abuse, where there was a lot of demeaning, where there was a lot of degrading, where there was a lot of controlling, very often the person will repeat the cycle of that kind of abuse. But if they are aware, awareness is 99% of the way there. If they are aware that they grew up in an environment that was a controlling environment, if they are aware that they grew up in an environment that was a demeaning, degrading, bad environment, if they are aware of it, then the chances of it being repeated are so less likely. So
I also have another question. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so those of us out there that, God forbid, come from bad backgrounds and from environments that were volatile and argumentative and conflictual, do not worry. It does not mean that you will be argumentative, conflictual, and horrible. It just means, that's how I grew up. Guess what? That's exactly how I am not going to be. And if you have good friends and you have a good therapist, then they will always tell you, oh, by the way, that little thing you're doing, that reminds me of what your mother and father did. And if I really want to hear them, I'll say, thank you for telling me. You know what? Thank you. It slipped right in there and I'm going to get rid of it. Thank you. Good friends are life's greatest gift. Okay, Alexandra, question.
This is both for you and the rabbi. As far as like compromise, specifically when it comes to religious type of things, how do you know, or what kind of compromise is it worthwhile to make?
Rabbi. The rabbi and I are going to have very different opinions on this. So, Rabbi, go ahead. I know what the rabbi is going to say. So I always like to hear it from him because I know his way is the right way.
Rabbi, unmute yourself.
Oh.
My experience is that really ladies are very powerful. And whenever people want a different spiritual level, let's say that, boys lived up to the expectations of the girls. That just, somehow I see that will happen. Ladies are very, very powerful. So in terms of boys thinking, oh, we're going to get married and I'm going to inspire my wife, I would recommend people to accept, a husband and wife the way they are, and really not to demand or not to expect, that people are going to be like them. When you're speaking about compromise, I think it's on a very, very individual basis. It depends on circumstances and your values and priorities, there are certain things that very difficult to compromise, like having a common dream of a Jewish family, what it means. But everything else is a subject of discussion.
Thank you, Rabbi. Now, Dr.
I think the rabbi's answer is fantastic. I always wish that I could have the strength that the rabbi has in terms of his way of acceptance. It's one of my goals in life. You know, we all have things that we continue to work on. And one of my goals in life is to be more accepting and to sit back and say, yeah, women are very, very powerful. If a woman is, if a woman has a strong sense of spirituality and religion, chances are she'll draw the guy along with her. I love that answer. I love that answer.
I spoke it to the boys. I only spoke to the boys. Be careful. Don't think that you're going to do vice versa. No, that's what I meant. To the boys who said, oh, I'm going to make my wife religious. I said, forget about it. That's most likely not going to happen. Vice versa, I'm not sure. I think that we need to accept each other. That's what I meant. I don't think that we can get married with the hope that, okay, I'm going to make him religious. That's what I think we should rule out.
Yeah, I also agree. I think it's very not good to get married with the idea that you're going to change the person, because people don't change. And if you think you're going to marry somebody and you're going to make them religious, that's not going to happen. But if you're marrying somebody who is a religious, spiritual person, they're just not quite at the level that you're at, then chances are they love you, you're creating a family together. Chances are you will do a family together. Also, people, when they get married, interestingly enough, when they get married, and Rabbi, you know this is true to be true, when they get married and they have children, children tend to draw you back into religion a lot, because it is the best way to bring up children. Religion gives you the guidelines, it gives you the whole book, so that you manage to have like a whole book on how to bring up children. It's a wonderful way to bring up children. So that I have found that when people have children, they end up coming towards religion more. Great question. All right, do we have more questions? What's on the chat?
Well, I was going to mention that, like, if the female is more religious in the relationship because she is at home and she is raising the kids, that kind of sets the environment for a more growth-oriented family.
Love that. That is such a great answer. Since the woman is in charge of the house, Keret Habayit, as they say, Keret Habayit means the important person in the house. And since she's the one that is that, yes, excellent. Thank you. A lot of noise going on, so I think we're ready to say goodnight.